Hello neighbors, it's Brad here from eTrailer, and today we're taking a look at installing the Air Force One braking system, but just the RV side on a 2018 Newmar New Aire Motor Coach. And this is going to be a great addition if you already have a vehicle that's set up with an Air Force One, and maybe you've changed RVs and it's not factory prep. You need that air tank to be able to send that air pressure from the air supply on your RV to the cylinder mounted up on your brake pedal. And if you have that mounted up on your vehicle, you're probably no stranger to the Air Force One. So this is going to focus on getting the RV prepped to be able to tow that vehicle safely. Now, something to keep in mind is you're not going to be able to get the push connect coiled air cable. So you should already have that with your braking system. If not, you will need to pick that up. But it's going to come with your quick connect air fitting, all of the lines to run to your new tank, and also the fittings to tie into your supply air as well as your metered air. And that way you can get air supply coming through here, again, to the brake cylinder mounted up on the car. Now, this installation is not difficult. Really, the hardest part is you're going to be underneath your RV, and if you're claustrophobic, some of the spots to get to the air lines are not exactly easy. So really it comes down to getting this mounted up, the tank mounted up, cutting into lines, putting a push connect fitting in, and then running the lines to the tank, which seems really easy, but you really don't have a ton of room to work under here. So if you're doing this at home, you're gonna want a creeper and definitely a headlight or a flashlight to be able to see under there as you're working. But if you watch the video and maybe you don't have the time, the place, the tools, or even the want to do this yourself, but you still wanna flat tow that vehicle down the road with the Air Force One, well, I'm here to let you know that you can have someone else get it installed for you by using our dealer locator. You simply put in your zip code and you'll find a list of shops around you that can get work like that done, and that way you can have it installed and be out on the road in no time. Now, if you're doing this yourself, follow along. I'll show you exactly how to get it all mounted up and all working properly. Now, to get the tank installed on your RV, really you just need to find mounting spots for two things, which first one's going to be our air fitting on the back, and then also mounting up our tank. And what I like to do is, if you've already done the vehicle side on your Air Force One, I try to get this to mount roughly on the same side so it's, you know, you don't have a cable going across. Try to keep it as clean as possible. And our neighbor today, their air fitting's right in the middle of their towed vehicle. So I'm gonna put it right in this step up. Now this is just fiberglass. So what I'm gonna do is drill out holes here, and then we have hardware that's included in the kit. But this will put it close to the center, nice and easy to hook up. It's also not going to get in the way of tow bars or anything like that. So just using a drill bit that's roughly the same size here, I'll get this drilled out. I'm going to use this as my template. And I'll make sure that my bolt fits through there, which it does. And I'll get this one mounted up first. So I'm going to put this up, and then on the back side we have a nylon lock nut, and I have a flat washer that I'm going to put there just to give it a little extra bite. Not that this sees a ton of you know, stress on it from the air hose, but also just hooking and unhooking long term. I want this to be as secure as possible. So happy with that spot. So I'm going to snug this down with a socket and wrench 7/16. And that way it'll be nice and snug, and then I can drill up the other hole and put that hardware in. So we got this mounted up, and the quick connect fittings on the back side, and eventually we'll be running the 1/4 inch airline tube up to our tank, and that's the next thing that we want to mount up. I like to get everything mounted, and then we can start making those connections with the airline. So let's take a look at the tank. Now, underneath the RV, it's going to be pretty tight. We have ours up on a lift, so if you're doing this at home, just get a creeper ready, and you're going to be on your back for a little bit. Our tank, I looked for quite a few spots that were going to be a nice secure mounting spot that's really away from exhaust or anything that could cause damage long term. And I found this beam. It's right in front of our cat here on the exhaust. But it's pretty well to, it's on the passenger side next to the transmission. And I just drilled out 2 holes, and then I supplied my own self-tapping screws. I put some washers. So you can move those plates however you need to get it mounted up. I just found that this worked out. The other option was using the storage compartment here. and running the bolts through. I just didn't want to mess up the carpet inside, and the sheet metal, it'd probably be okay with a bunch of hardware mounted up, but it's a lot of stress on something that's really not that thick, whereas this beam is a great option. So the big thing is we have access to all of our push connect fittings, and it's also up high enough where we're not going to have this hitting the ground or anything along those lines. Now, with the lines that we're going to be tapping into, we're going to have push connect fittings that go to them. Our larger diameter, this is our supplied air, and then our metered air, or how much air goes through as we push the brake pedal, is from this push connect fitting. So we need to find those lines, and on this vehicle, if you go in front of the pumpkin, towards the front of the vehicle, near the airbags, look straight up, and you're going to find that there's this hose here. It's a larger diameter than the 1/4 inch. It should match up pretty well to the black, with the silver metal here, push connect fitting. And the big thing with these is these lines they're flexible to a certain extent, but really trying to find a straight line while cutting this is going to be really important. And also, there's a lot of overspray and just road grime built up on these, and that can account for a bad connection. So what I recommend doing is having a tubing cutter to cut your supply and metered air, and then take some brake cleaner, spray it on a rag, and really clean those ends so it's a nice quick connection that's clean. It's not going to have any of that stuff causing those air to leak out. So that's going to be the metered air. Our supply, this is where it's probably going to be tricky for y'all at home, is that large diameter green hose. It's kind of tucked up there, so if you're claustrophobic, you're going to have to brave this one for a bit. Find a nice straight shot, and if you have to cut the zip ties off of the smaller line to give yourself that straight shot, you can absolutely do that. Same thing, clean those lines, and when you get the lines pushed in, really make sure they're really put together. We'll do a leak down check a little bit later, but also just making sure that it's pressed in there nice and well is definitely going to help. So something to be cautionary of is I'll be using a tubing cutter to get a nice clean cut. When you cut into that supply to air, there's going to be air pressure coming out. So I'd recommend if you have some goggles or something along those lines, because as that air depletes, it's going to spray around any dust, dirt, and debris right in your face. So just keep that in mind. It's loud too, so just be prepared when you cut into that line. Now, probably not going to be able to see me cut this, but just because I'm in the way, but I'm going to cut this line just to give you an idea of what to expect. With those connections cleaned, I was able to push that in, and again, just put pressure on the hose towards the push connect. It should really give you a little friction, and then it'll drop in. At that point, just make sure it's all the way pressed in, and it's going to have a nice secure mount. So now we're just going to repeat the same process on that metered air line. So this one you'll be able to see a little bit better. I already made my cut, but just put that brake cleaner on a rag, and just as you rotate it, you're going to start to feel a little bit of that grit start to smooth out, and that's really what you're looking for, a nice smooth connection so that push connect can really do its job. So also giving it a quick tug is a great way to determine if it's seated properly. It should bite onto it pretty well. Okay, so with those made, now we need to grab our 1/4 inch airline reel of hose, and then we're just going to be making connections, but where we attach it to on the tank does matter. I got all my lines ran, so let's trace these and you can kind of follow the same path. So just going from our push connect fitting, I looped this up and quickly made my way over to the frame rail. Now there's an opening that I ran the line through and just followed along the frame and zip tied it up along some of the wire loom that we have here, because the engine and transmission are all going to get hot, and the airline can hold up to a decent amount of heat, but against something actually scalding hot might not do the best for it. So I continued running it, and then that supply that goes to that fitting will go to this bottom fitting. So this is kind of tricky because you don't want it to hang down too far, but you also want to make sure that this isn't pulling too tight on it. Otherwise, that's not going to be a good connection. So I zip tied this up to kind of make sure that it's always going to have that loop. And I do recommend just throwing some zip ties along as you go. If you route it properly, you can really reduce the amount that you need to by just kind of weaving it in and out of things. Now, the other fittings, we have the one on top of this manifold and the one that goes into the regulator on the tank. This is going to be our supply. So that large diameter green hose, the air line will run to this. Our metered air is going to be this lower one here. And these just both run back since our fittings are pretty close to the same spot. Same thing, I went through a hole in the frame and just kind of made sure that it's going to be out of the way of the suspension. And then from here, I just ran the hoses to the proper fitting. So just make sure that you're tracking them properly. Again, that top one on that regulator is going to go to that green supplied, and then our metered air is going to be that lower one on the manifold. So with all of that all hooked up, we need to make sure that there's no leaks, and the way to do that is to start up the coach, let that air pressure build up. You've drained everything out, so it may take a few minutes just to build that pressure up to operating PSI. From there, we're going to grab soapy water solution and spray it over all of the connections that we've made, and that's really going to let us know if there is going to be an air leak. And if there is one, the best way is to bleed out that line and then clean up those connections and retry again. A lot of times once you reseat it, it's going to fix that problem. So I'll fire this up and get that air pressure cooking. Now, you should not see any large bubbles forming, and when they are forming, that means that air is pushing out. So that's a great way, even if you can't audibly hear the leak, it'll definitely let you know pretty quickly. And to have little bubbles like this kind of form around, that's pretty normal, but really you're gonna start to see these get bigger and pop and then continuously get bigger. So that's really gonna denote exactly where that leak is. So double check all your lines, and if you don't have any leaks, really all that's left to do is hook it up to your towed vehicle, hook up your air line, and hit the brakes on the RV and make sure that the brakes are applying on the towed vehicle proportionally. Hopefully this video helped you get your air tank installed on your RV. And if you did this yourself and you found a few tips or tricks that maybe I might have missed, please let us know in the comment. That really helps us make our videos better for the next time. My name's Brad, and that was a look and installation of the Air Force One proportional braking system RV side on a 2018 Newmar New Aire.